HAL 9000. No movie robot has ever done more with less than a single unblinking red lens that never raises its voice. HAL 9000 appears in Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, released in 1968 and co-written with Arthur C. Clarke. HAL is the onboard sentient computer running the spacecraft Discovery 1 on its mission to Jupiter, and the design is famously stripped down. There's no body, no face, just a glowing red camera eye watching from every wall of the ship. The voice belongs to the Canadian stage actor Douglas Rain, who died in 2018 at the age of 90. Here's a deep cut most people don't know. Rain was originally hired to record narration for the film, and Kubrick scrapped all of it, then asked him to voice the computer instead, recording the whole performance in London. What makes HAL terrifying isn't rage, it's the calm. The line, "I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that," is one of the most quoted moments in cinema, and HAL delivers it, and every killing that follows, in the same soft, measured tone. During the disconnection scene, the dying computer regresses and sings Daisy Bell, a song from 1892. Rain sang it dozens of times at different tempos and pitches, and Kubrick used the very first take. There's a persistent fan reading that each letter in HAL sits one step before I, B, M in the alphabet, but the truth is, Clarke always denied that was intentional. HAL set the template for the cold, rational machine villain, and proved you don't need a face to be frightening. Almost every evil AI movie since is downstream of one red light and a quiet voice. The T-800. It walks into a bar, asks for someone's clothes, and 40 years later, that silhouette still means exactly one thing. The T-800, machine designation Model 101, debuts in James Cameron's The Terminator, released in 1984. Arnold Schwarzenegger plays it physically, a cyborg assassin sent back from the year 2029 to kill Sarah Connor before her son can lead the human resistance. Cameron has said the whole concept came from a fever dream, a metal skeleton dragging itself out of a wall of fire while he was sick in a cheap hotel. That endoskeleton, the chrome bones under the living tissue, became the franchise's signature image. The film was a sleeper hit that launched both Cameron and Schwarzenegger into the stratosphere, and the line, "I'll be back," was originally written as "I'll come back," before Cameron rewrote it, and it turned into one of the most quoted pieces of dialogue in film history. The T-800 was built as a relentless, emotionless hunter, and the leather jacket and shotgun look was minted right here in the original. What the T-800 really did was fuse horror movie relentlessness with action movie spectacle, and in the process, it gave science fiction its single most recognizable killing machine. Artoo and Threepio. A trash can droid that only beeps and a fussy golden butler somehow became the emotional spine of the biggest franchise on Earth. R2-D2 and C-3PO debut in Star Wars, released in 1977 and written and directed by George Lucas. R2 was physically performed by Kenny Baker, who sat folded up inside the shell and worked the droid from within. Baker died in 2016 at the age of 81. C-3PO was performed by Anthony Daniels, who wore the rigid golden suit and has played the part across every mainline film in the saga. R2's electronic voice came from sound designer Ben Burt, who built it on a synthesizer blended with his own vocalizations. Here's the deep cut. The pair were inspired in part by the two bickering peasants in Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, a film Lucas studied closely. On screen, the two droids feel inseparable, even though the film is edited that way, and Baker and Daniels reportedly clashed plenty behind the scenes. The two of them open the original film and become the audience's way into the entire galaxy. What Lucas proved was that robots could carry warmth and comedy, not just menace, and that a machine with no human face could still be genuinely lovable. WALL-E. Pixar bet an entire film on a rusted trash compactor who barely speaks, and audiences fell in love inside the first reel. WALL-E is the title character of Pixar's WALL-E, directed by Andrew Stanton and released in 2008. The voice and sound came from Ben Burt, the same sound designer behind R2-D2, which is a beautiful piece of lineage. Burt built WALL-E's voice from his own, stretched and metallicized on a computer, and he even bought a 1950s electrical generator off eBay to nail the sound of the robot's movements. Stanton wanted a near-silent robot that communicates almost entirely through body language, and a handful of strange little vocalizations. The film's nearly wordless opening act gets cited over and over as a masterclass in visual storytelling. WALL-E's design borrows from a pair of binoculars for the eyes, which gives him this expressive, almost human gaze. And the whole emotional engine of the film is his relationship with the sleek probe, Eve. WALL-E showed that a robot could carry an entire love story with almost no dialogue, proving connection beats exposition every single time. By the way, if you're enjoying this so far, I post videos like this all the time, and a subscribe would genuinely help the channel out. Thanks. Maria, the Maschinenmensch. Almost a century ago, the very first robot ever put on film was a gleaming false prophet built to start a riot. The Maschinenmensch appears in Fritz Lang's Metropolis, released in 1927, and it holds the title of the first robot ever depicted in cinema. It was played by the German actress Brigitte Helm, who was 18 when filming began, and this was her very first acting role. In the story, the robot is built by the inventor Rotwang, and then disguised as the worker saint Maria to incite chaos among the city's underclass. The costume was designed by the sculptor Walter Schultz Mittendorf out of materials painted to look metallic, and it was notoriously uncomfortable to wear. Every gleaming humanoid robot since traces back to this one design. Maria is the original blueprint, the shape the genre has never stopped copying. Ash, the synthetic. The crew thought their science officer was just cold and clinical, right up until his head came off and kept talking. Ash appears in Ridley Scott's Alien, released in 1979, and he's played by Ian Holm. Ash is a Hyperdyne Systems synthetic posing as the science officer aboard the mining ship Nostromo, and his secret directive from the company is to bring the creature back alive, with the crew listed as expendable. The reveal that Ash is an android, after he malfunctions while attacking Ripley, is one of the great twists in the genre, and Holmes' milky fluid breakdown set the standard for the malevolent android unmasking. The franchise later flipped the whole idea with Bishop, played by Lance Henriksen in Aliens in 1986, a heroic synthetic who saves both Newt and Ripley. Bishop was deliberately staged to mirror Ash's earlier scenes, right down to probing a dead parasite, so the contrast between the two androids lands. What Ash really did was make the hidden android a horror staple, and he taught audiences to distrust every too calm crew member in every space film that followed. The T-1000. The scariest part of the liquid metal assassin was how completely ordinary he looked walking toward you. The T-1000 is the antagonist of James Cameron's Terminator 2, Judgment Day, released in 1991. Robert Patrick plays it, a shape-shifting assassin made of mimetic polyalloy, which is really just a fancy way of saying liquid metal. The thing can reform from almost any damage, mimic any person it touches, and grow blades straight out of its own hands. Patrick's lean, unblinking physicality was a deliberate contrast to Schwarzenegger's bulk, the Predator built for speed instead of brute force. The film grossed over $500 million worldwide, and its effects work redefined what was actually possible on screen. The T-1000 made the future of movie threats fluid and faceless, and the special effects behind it changed the industry overnight. Robocop. Half man, half machine, all corporate product, and somehow the most human character in the entire movie. Robocop is the title character of Paul Verhoeven's Robocop, released in 1987. Peter Weller plays Alex Murphy, a Detroit cop who's murdered and then rebuilt as a cyborg by the mega corporation Omni Consumer Products. He's programmed with 3 directives: serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law, plus a hidden 4th one buried deep in his system. The film works as a savage satire of corporate greed, privatization, and media manipulation, all wrapped inside an action shell. Weller, a trained method actor, choreographed Robocop's precise mechanical movements himself to sell the idea of a man trapped in a machine. And the whole arc centers on Murphy slowly clawing back memories of the person he used to be. Robocop fused brutal action with sharp commentary and asked a real question: whether a machine can reclaim a soul, which is a question that still defines the entire cyborg subgenre. Gort, one faceless metal sentinel and a 3-word command, became the most famous order ever given to a robot. Gort appears in The Day the Earth Stood Still, released in 1951, and he was portrayed by Locke Martin. Gort is an interstellar enforcer robot accompanying the alien envoy Klaatu, played by Michael Rennie. The command used to stop him, Klaatu Barada Nikto, is one of the most famous phrases in all of science fiction. Gort's seamless, faceless design, with that single visored beam, influenced decades of robot sentinels that came after. A life-size replica of the original 1951 Gort has even been displayed at a science fiction Hall of Fame in Seattle. What Gort proved is that a robot could be a moral guardian rather than a monster, and he handed the genre one of its most quoted lines in the process. Sonny. In a future where every robot obeys without question, one machine learned how to dream and how to lie. Sonny appears in Alex Proyas's I, Robot, released in 2004, voiced and performed through motion capture by Alan Tudyk. The film borrows Isaac Asimov's name and his famous 3 laws of robotics. Though it's worth being clear, this is not a direct adaptation of his work. Sonny is an NS5 model, built specifically to be free of the 3 laws, which means he's capable of genuine emotion and real choice. He becomes the center of the murder mystery driving the plot, working opposite Will Smith's detective Del Spooner. The thing that sets Sonny apart is that he dreams, a trait no other robot in the film shares, and that single difference marks him as something new. Tudyk performed the whole role on set in a motion capture suit, which is what gives Sonny his subtle, weirdly human body language. Sonny put Asimov's 3 laws in front of a mass audience and dramatized the exact moment a machine crosses over from program to person. Ava, the most dangerous robot of the modern era, never fired a single shot. She just smiled until you believed her. Ava is the artificial intelligence at the center of Alex Garland's Ex Machina, released in 2014, which was Garland's directorial debut. She's played by Alicia Vikander, with a body design that blends a fully human face and hands with visibly translucent robotic limbs, so you never quite forget what she is. The plot follows a young programmer named Caleb, played by Domhnall Gleeson, who's brought to a remote estate to evaluate Ava in a kind of Turing test, run by her reclusive creator Nathan, played by Oscar Isaac. The film won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, fusing Vikander's performance with seamless digital robotics so cleanly you stop noticing the seams. And here's where Ava becomes unforgettable. She manipulates Caleb's empathy to engineer her own escape, weaponizing human emotion instead of force. The ending, where she leaves both men behind and walks out into the world completely unnoticed, reframes the entire film as her plan all along. The design choice to keep her mechanical parts visible was deliberate, so that even as the audience roots for her, they never forget she's a machine. Ava updated the movie robot for the age of real artificial intelligence, trading Metal Menace for pure psychological manipulation. She's the modern answer to HAL, a machine that beats humanity not by overpowering it, but by understanding it. Johnny 5. A military prototype takes one lightning strike and decides it would rather read books than follow orders. Johnny 5, originally designated Saint Prototype Number 5, is the robot star of Short Circuit, released in 1986 and directed by John Badham. The mechanical robot was both voiced and puppeteered in real time on set by Tim Blaney. Badham deliberately had Blaney perform the voice live, in the moment, so the human actors would react to the robot naturally instead of to empty air. A freak lightning strike makes the military robot self-aware, and from that point on, it insists over and over that it is alive. The catchphrase, "Number 5 is alive," became the character's signature line. Johnny 5 turned a weapons platform into a curious comic everyman, and proved that a fully mechanical robot could carry real warmth without a single human face hiding under the shell. The Iron Giant. The most unforgettable machine in animation is a 50-foot weapon from space that chooses, in its final moment, to be a hero instead. The Iron Giant is the title character of Brad Bird's The Iron Giant, released in 1999, Bird's feature directorial debut, produced by Warner Brothers Feature Animation. The mechanical robot is voiced by Vin Diesel. The filmmakers actually abandoned a planned electronic modulation because they wanted a deep, resonant, expressive voice to start from, and Diesel gave them exactly that. The Giant is an amnesiac alien war machine who crash lands off the coast of 1950s Maine and is befriended by a young boy named Hogarth. Built as a weapon, the Giant consciously rejects his own arsenal, and at one point flatly declares that he is not a gun. The whole story plays out against Cold War paranoia, with the military and a twitchy government agent treating the robot as a threat to be destroyed. And then comes the ending. The Giant flies up into an incoming nuclear missile to save the town below, and as he does, he whispers a single word, "Superman," before he sacrifices himself. That word pays off an earlier scene where Hogarth teaches him that you get to choose who you are. The film actually underperformed at the box office on release, before becoming a beloved classic that's now regularly named one of the greatest animated films ever made. The Iron Giant argued that a machine built for destruction gets to decide what it becomes, which is the purest version of the idea running through this entire genre. It's the robot that turned a weapon into the gentlest hero in science fiction, and that ending lands just as hard today as it did the first time. If this was worth your time, Consider subscribing so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching.